Welcome to another exciting edition of the We Talk Chelsea podcast with Tem, Charlie and Tom. Three blokes who play Sunday League football, united by a mutual love of Chelsea Football Club. And it's been an absolutely really quiet week to be a Chelsea football fan. Nothing really much to discuss this weekend, boys. I'm not too sure how we can spread this out across the hour that we've put scheduled aside for today. Well, let's address the elephant in the room here. Graham Potter sacked after just 7 months in the role. Todd Boehly doing, making names, making waves. He's done something that Roman Abramovich failed to do in 20 years of owning the club. He's sacked two managers in the space of a season, never been done before. After following our defeat against Aston Villa at the weekend on Saturday evening's kickoff. Chaps, we can't say we didn't see it coming, did we? I mean, it's pretty much on the cards. We all said a few weeks back that even though he got us through against Dortmund, had a couple of wins, as soon as those losses start coming in, as soon as those points get dropped again, he's just going to be right back to where he started. And let's move. We'll speak directly with Mr. Positive himself, who'll lead us off the line. So, Mr. Harris, how are you feeling following the somewhat, I wouldn't say surprise, but maybe the surprise time in sacking of Graham Potter on the late Sunday evening?
Yeah, I mean, it's well overdue. He should have probably been sacked about a month or so ago. Obviously, he got a few results together, and I at the time went, right, let's hope that he's turned it around. But I think as soon as that Everton match came, I just felt we're back to square one. That Villa match on Saturday was a complete sham. And he has to go. It's simple as that. And wish him well. Nothing against him personally, but he should never have been given the job in the first place, and he's just completely out of his depth.
Don't mince your words there, Charlie, at all. Temba, how you feel? I know you were one calling for Potter to be let go a few weeks back as well, maybe for different reasons compared to Charlie. But how are you feeling as a result of this? How do you feel, as we step into it, yet another new era as a Chelsea fan?
Well, it just really highlights the kind of mistake it was in the first place. I mean, it was kind of an ambitious appointment, especially after sacking Tuchel. Obviously, everyone had their doubts, and I think he's been given long enough to at least keep us afloat. But the problem is, nothing looked like it was improving. Everything looked like it was getting worse. Although maybe we were playing all right football, we just couldn't get any results. And at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. So, he had to go. I mean, 5 wins in 21, was it? Something around that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can see is matches played is in its entirety at Chelsea, 31 matches played, 12 wins, 8 draws, 11 losses, and only 33 goals in 31 matches. Yeah. I think it pretty much echoes kind of familiar. He's got previous that with Brighton. Brighton were known for playing fast, attacking, expansive football, but they struggled to put the ball in the net, and he's just kind of transferred across to his tenure here at Chelsea.
Yeah, I think there's something else to mention here as well is if people remember back to before the World Cup, when we broke up for the World Cup, we went on a terrible run before that, and it looked like that he wasn't. I remember the Arsenal home game, Newcastle away game. He looked like and people went, but he's had a few injuries, and there was a bit of understanding. Reece James was out, Chilwell was out, some big players are out. But since January, and we brought all these players in, and I'd say since beginning of February. And we're 2 months down the line now. He's had pretty much a full strength squad to pick from, and he's had all these new players that he's been given. And ultimately, look, when he took over, we were 6th. We're now 11th, and and yet he's had an improved squad. When you take the injuries and the new players into account, we were paying Lewis Hall before Christmas.
Yeah,
he was an academy player. I mean, people forget that. This is how many injuries we had. So you could sort of forgive that if you compare that to what we've got now. But yet we seem to be no better than we were then. Then it's got to come down to the manager. Sorry, it has to. That's the only denominator, isn't it? Left.
Yeah, I think initially when Graham Potter was appointed, other than the initial shock for Thomas Tuchel being sacked, I remember it was on the first week of my new job, and I was sat next to a Chelsea fan, and I just showed him my phone, and he was completely flummoxed as to why it happened initially in the outset. But when he was announced, I thought, do you know what? Why not? We've gone through so many times where we've gone for a manager where, you know, we want that short-term quick fix win, and it's like it's worked. Clearly, it's worked in the last 20 years for ourselves. You know, hire and fire, get the next one in. The revolving door that is the Chelsea manager hot seat. I thought, why not? Let's go invest in a project. We looked at other projects like Mikel Arteta. Well, maybe Graham Potter could have been the person to do this. So I was very, very hopeful from the outset. And it was only up until very, very, very recently where I thought that potentially it's, you know, when does a project start to work? Like, and it's like you said, it's been 7 months. You know, the form was dreadful before. We've gone from 6 to 11. So if anything, we've regressed, and it's not without the fact that he's got an extremely bloated squad. He's got to manage those egos in that team. You know, egos that he hasn't had to manage in any of his tenures previously before. Yeah, I mean, it's just like you can't fault it. Like even when he leaves, like even though we're in a worse position, I can't hate Graham Potter because overwhelmingly he is a nice person. He's a nice man, and you want him to do well. I mean, you know, I know it's not. I know he's gone now, and he's not a Chelsea manager anymore. But where can you see somebody like Graham Potter ending up at some point in the future? Could you see him potentially bouncing back to one of the bigger clubs eventually, or do you think he needs to, you know, go to a lower league, build his credibility up again before broaching a larger top 6 team like Chelsea? I say top 6, you know, historically.
You want to go, Charlie, or
no? You go, Tim.
No, I disagree. I think he should go for another top half team anyway. Not maybe necessarily not top 6. Maybe Tottenham would be ideal for him. I think when you judge anyone through a Chelsea manager perspective, I don't think it's quite fair. I do think it's probably the hardest job in football for any manager, and not many people tend to succeed, whether they are Mourinho, Graham Potter, or Thomas Tuchel, or anyone really. I think it's only a select few who have come out on the positive end, and I think he still has a thing to learn or two. And obviously the Chelsea job just came, I think, a little bit too soon for him, because maybe the job itself, managing all the players and stuff, was just a bit too much for him. However, I do see that there is a good manager in there somewhere. Maybe just not for a top 6 team just yet. Yeah.
I think what we might be able to do now, Charlie, is because the emotions are so not raw from the games that we lost and points that dropped across the season. With hindsight, could we say that potentially Graham Potter was maybe the right man at the wrong time in terms of a project? Do you think that it would have been better if Graham Potter would have been put in place at the start of, say, for example, Tuchel was sacked anyway, and then somebody else was brought in, another large, big name that's managed at this level before, and then he was brought in at the start of the summer, so we had a full however long pre-season to get the players in. He wants the players that he doesn't want out. Do you think there could have been elements for that? Right person, wrong time?
Yeah, potentially. I think with a lot of this project stuff though as well is I think as Chelsea fans we have been really blessed under Abramovich for so many years. And the problem is last season was considered a bad season, right? Most people thought that we ended it, but we finished 3rd and we got to 2 cup finals. We lost both on penalties, right? The year before we won the Champions League and we won didn't we win that cup last year? The World Cup, Club Cup? No, the World Club Cup.
Oh, the World Club Cup, yeah.
Whatever it is. And so it wasn't a bad season at all. But yeah, at the end of the season, we're all a bit like, oh God, that was a bit of a slog, that one, wasn't it? To go from that to 11th, you got to remember these project teams like Arsenal, they'd been mediocre for a long time before they got Arteta on board. They had that other guy before, Emery, didn't they? And even Wenger, it was consistently just 4-4-4. They never won anything much. They beat us in a cup final.
Just the FA Cup.
Just the odd cup here and there.
5 years.
No, but I don't think they did. I think there was a period before Arteta for about 5 years where they didn't really win much, and also, you know, Klopp's probably another one to look at who you would argue would be a project manager. Project manager, is that what they call them? I don't know. but they had years and years of mediocrity before that. So with us, we were doing quite well up to that. So you have to just keep it going. You don't bring in you bring in those sort of managers, I think, when you've got a bad squad and you really need a churn out and all this. But we bought so many players so quickly, that why bother buying these players? I mean, why bother buying them if you don't want to succeed? Why spend 600 million and then go, we're just going to have the sort of this project manager bloke and he's going to be there for a few years and we'll give him loads of time? No, it doesn't work like that. If you've got the money, you spend it and get success straight away. So you bring in an elite manager, I think,
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, a lot of players are brought in at the right time. And I think a lot of days now, Potter's a head coach. He's not a manager. So he's not the person he can make suggestions of players that he likes and admires that might be a good fit to his team. But he's not, signing off these signings. Do you know what I mean? He can only really go with what's been given to him by the recruitment from the director of football. At the time would have been Todd Boehly, a man that's got no experience in football club management at that level. Baseball and football, completely different things. We want to score goals, we want to win games. We're not just trying to get batters on base. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's very difficult. I think, in my personal opinion, I think we could have put anybody in that role at the start of September after the January transfer window closed with the squad so bloated, and then in January as well, not shipping out the players that we needed to ship out in that time frame. We've said this before. Hakim Ziyech, he was 5 minutes away from joining PSG. He was so close to leaving, but then he's next week playing. So it just goes to show he's got to try and keep people happy. And, we've got to try it. It's a very difficult role. I think even very, very large egos. I think the only ego that I can think of from a manager that could probably handle that is a former Chelsea manager in Jose Mourinho, but I don't think he would have been the wrong person that time. I don't see him coming back anytime soon, specifically if Boehly wants a man that's going to be picking up his phone calls at 3:00 in the morning if need be. Let's look ahead in terms of where we are going now. So Potter's out. We need to look elsewhere. We need to look at some of the managers, and fortunately, there were quite a few managers that became available very, very recently as the result of the revolving door that is the manager world. Let's just have a look here. I mean, before we go on there, we just a comment here from Jam. So Jam saying, you guys need to do what Arteta did with Arsenal. Get rid of Deadwood and invest in your academy talent. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us on the panel are going to disagree with that. I think Arteta came in, he got rid of Aubameyang, he got rid of Mesut Ozil as well. Some of these big ego players. We're already invested in the academy talent anyway. Is that something that we should have been doing a long time ago, Charlie?
But we've got quite a few academy players coming through. Obviously, they're not going to get a chance with the bloated squad. So, like what Jam says is right, is that we need to get rid of a lot of players. We should have probably got rid of a lot of players before we bought the new players, to be honest, because there isn't many players that I can think of that we've bought who have actually been a successful signing so far. Not many.
Yeah.
Badiashile, maybe. That's probably about the only one that I could, off the top of my head, who's actually
Enzo.
Yeah, but for the money, for in terms of money versus talent, I would argue, I would say Badiashile. Enzo, yes, but still probably need a bit more from him. Felix isn't our player yet. There's not really.
You're hearing this, Tem. You're hearing this, Tem. He said Felix isn't our player yet, so he's clearly is on board to sign Felix. Even though he's not our player, he wants him. Charlie just let slip Freudian.
No, but you can't. Yeah, but you can't. You can't judge Felix just yet because he's a loan player. So how do we know what we might pay? We might end up having to pay 100 million for him. Is he worth 100 million? Then you can judge it. You know what I mean? It just depends what we get him for, I suppose.
I mean, if it's Todd Boehly and he's worth 100 million, we're going to end up paying 160 million. Probably have to take it on Klarna or something, paying 3 or whatever. Let's talk about, you mentioned Badiashile. Let's think of it this way. Let's talk about Villa, the actual game itself, the nail in the coffin for Potter's time here. When the team sheet was announced, I thought this is absolutely dreadful in terms of selection of where players are playing. I couldn't figure out the set. I think you've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek, so where's he fitting in here? And Reece James. Like, Reece James is, for me, and I'm probably going to be very, very biased to people that are watching this, is the best right wing back in the world. I don't watch La Liga, so I can't comment on like players out there. I can't comment on Liga and like Hakimi. I just can't comment on it. For me, Reece James is a player that I see every week, the best in the world. So why are you playing for that position, the best right wing back in the world, as a centre back, and a player who's known for playing centre midfield as a right wing back when you've got Trevoh Chalobah at centre back and Badiashile on the bench as well? And Trevoh Chalobah was in training as a back three. He was in training on the Friday before the game in that shape. Like, it made me think Potter's supposed to be known for his tactical nuance, but I didn't understand that, Tem. How were you feeling in terms of like when that team sheet was announced? Because Temba, you attended the game, so how did it feel in the stadium when that team sheet was announced?
Well, this is the only rational reason I can use. I remember a time under Thomas Tuchel when he did something similar. He started playing Reece James at right centre back, and people were wondering why. And he came out in a press conference and mentioned about managing Reece James' minutes, about like not overloading his muscles so he didn't get injured. So I guess playing him at right centre back maybe was a last minute decision, and he thought maybe, I don't know if he'd spoken to the medical staff, or I don't know, and something arose where he was feeling a bit of discomfort, and they thought, let's not maybe play him at wing back, and he won't be able to last 90 minutes. So the next best option is you play him at centre back. Maybe.
If that was the case, though, why didn't you just play Trevoh Chalobah there and then have Reece James start the game at right wing back and then get ahead and then sub him off?
Yeah, well, that's not really a decision I made. That's just the only rational reasoning I can think of why he has done it. Because he did play 90 minutes, I think. Yeah, he did play 90 minutes.
He played the full 90. He ended up playing either side of Koulibaly on the right side, and then Ben Chilwell, arguably Chelsea's greatest attacking threat at the moment behind Joao Felix, was playing at centre back as well by the end of the game. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah, you could even see like he brought on Madueke at right wing back, so maybe there was a precaution sort of thought behind it. Otherwise, I think the logical thing would have been to move Reece James to right wing back as soon as it was half time. I definitely think that we maybe didn't utilize our centre backs very well, because I didn't see why we started Cucurella as well. I thought Villa would play a lot of long balls and they would win a lot of headers at set pieces. And you saw, especially with Cucurella, that chance where Ollie Watkins, I was thinking, why did he come across so quickly like that? And maybe someone slightly taller gets to that with a better angled header. Maybe Badiashile would able to, head that away a bit more carefully. But just to say, way before the game, you could tell we were going to lose this game. I mean, I spoke to a load of Villa fans, and not a single one of them thought they would lose, even before the team sheet came out. And that really spoke of how poor we've been the last maybe 3-4 months. They all thought at least they would get a draw at least, or 3 points, and that's really telling, because even I said right before kickoff I would take a draw, because you just couldn't see where our goals are coming from, where we'd be able to even outmove them, because their manager, like I said, elevates them to a level above us, where our manager really sort of demeans us to a 10th, 11th position team.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie, I mean, it's so weird, because it's clear that we can create chances. I think I shared something in the group that since the Villa goal, between the Watkins goal and the second goal that was scored by Villa by John McGinn, we were dominating. We were peppering shots at goal. We had shots on target. But the problem is, it's the same thing that Chelsea have been doing for the last 4 years, really. It doesn't matter the manager. We just can't seem to get the ball in the back of the net. I mean, if it's you, just say, for example, okay, if you're Todd Boehly, you've appointed X manager, it doesn't matter. What are you saying as a Todd Boehly to this manager? What I want you to shore up and make sure you do, and what do you think that we need to do? Is it simply just, okay, just get the ball in the net? It doesn't matter how. Just scrappy 1-0 wins. What would you say?
Yeah, we need results. Basically, that's gonna get us confidence, and these players aren't confident. That's the problem as well. So you got Mudryk, he's just really not confident, and he hasn't been confident basically since he started with us, apart from that cameo appearance at Liverpool. Felix, although he's playing well at the moment, don't be surprised if his confidence wanes over time because he's playing with players that aren't confident. Havertz isn't confident, takes too many touches. Mount's not confident. So all these players that are playing up top, none of them are excelling really at all.
Yeah.
I think we need to just grind out. It's kind of what Potter was doing when we beat
Palace.
who did we beat? Yeah, Palace and then somebody else and Dortmund, just grinding out these results, just keeping clean sheets, back to basics,
Yeah.
Even if I don't understand this obsession, and call me really old school, right? But I don't understand this obsession with playing three up front and all this. Why don't we just play 4-4-2? Just go back to really simple. Yeah, you can
just
laugh.
Lumping it long.
Just
ball over the top.
Big man up top. Yeah.
Why bother having a midfield?
No, you can have a midfield. You can still have two in the midfield. But I'm just saying that there are teams in the Premier League that play Brentford play that sort of system, don't they? I think something like that. They play two up top, don't they? I think is that right? Is it Brentford with Forest? Maybe Forest.
I can't remember.
Someone in the top half plays that sort of system anyway. And I just think, there's nothing wrong with playing these. What is the obsession with playing three up front when none of them can actually put the ball in the back of the net? Just put the wingers on the wing and put two up. Maybe put Havertz with Fofana or something. Just something like that up front, or Mount and Fofana, or some Aubameyang. I mean, obviously Aubameyang will be back, won't he? I'm guessing now he'll be back in the fold, so maybe him.
Do you know if you're a new manager going into this role and you've got Aubameyang on the sidelines that's probably going to go out at the end of the season? He's pretty certain that he's going to go back to Barcelona at this point. Do you even bother? Like, realistically, do you bother? Because what's the point? Why would you then bring a player in that is off in the summer? You may as well just go with Fofana, like you said. Give more minutes to Fofana.
Why are we playing Felix every week? We don't even know if he's staying. It's like having. We knew Aubameyang was going to be a 1 year thing. We kind of knew when we bought him it was going to be a 1 or 2 year thing. So all we need him for is his football. We're not interested in him becoming a fan, having a statue outside Stamford Bridge. It's just about going. We're going to give you a ball and we want you to put it in the back of the net, and that's it. That's your job.
But if he doesn't want to be there, I don't know if he doesn't want to be there. So why is he going to perform to his best of his ability?
Because we're paying him. We're paying him money.
Exactly,
so he's contracted to do that. He's got to. If we pick him, he's got to play. Otherwise, we don't need to pay him.
He can play, but when it comes to those 50-50 balls or second balls or anything like that at all, he's got to get his foot on his head stuck in there. He's not going to do it. He's really not.
I suppose it's similar to Lukaku last year, isn't it? After he did that interview, we dropped him for a few matches. But I remember towards the end of the season, we started playing him again. Didn't we? I'm pretty sure he came back in the fold a little bit at one point.
Yeah, he did.
I suppose it's similar to that. It's like if you're struggling that much for goals, well, you might as well just chuck these guys out, even though they don't really want to be there. You just hope for the best, don't you?
I think for me, if you're a new manager and you've got Datro Fofana there, you're better off playing him and just trying him there over Aubameyang, because Aubameyang's head is elsewhere, and it's speaking of players whose heads are elsewhere at the moment, we didn't see any participation with Mason Mount at all. No news on terms of injuries or anything like that at all. But apparently, Tem, you were there when it comes to at the end of the game. Something interesting you spotted in terms of Mason Mount and the rest of the Chelsea players at the end.
Oh yeah. Well, I think Mykhailo Mudryk. I can't remember who the other player was. I think it might have been Enzo or Kovacic. One or two players who started the game came over and applauded the fans, but obviously they were quick to head down the tunnel, and Potter didn't even acknowledge anyone. I think he was just deflated as well. And you saw Mason Mount, he walked around the pitch. I think he kind of knew what he was doing. At the same time, I think it was kind of a show of status of I am Chelsea, I'm here sort of thing. But again, it just really shows the disconnect between the fans and the players and the manager at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, Jam, thanks very much for your comment there. You want players to play for the badge and not just pick up the paycheck. And I think of the two, Fofana and Aubameyang, I think Fofana's more likely to want to play for the badge and play to actually, get a consistent run of games. But we digress. That's the Villa game pretty much sussed. We didn't really see too much of substance, really. It's the same stuff that we're talking about every single week. All this possession, all this attack and play, and not able to get the ball in the net. Just a quick one. What did we think of the Chilwell goal? Foul or no foul?
Yeah, it was a foul.
It was a foul exaggerated by the best diver in the world, Ashley Young, but I think it was a foul.
Fair enough. Right, let's move forward. So, Potter's out. Many managers of agents thrown their name in the hat. It looks like it could be quite interesting who we're getting in. Obviously, the front run at the moment is Julian Nagelsmann, a man who was ruthlessly sacked the day before he was officially sacked by Bayern Munich, replaced by former Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel. Other names to be linked to the role include De Zerbi as well from Brighton. At which point, if De Zerbi was to come from Brighton to Chelsea, it would have just made sense for Todd Boehly to just buy Brighton. It would have been a hell of a lot cheaper for Clear Lake Capital, let's face it. Other names that have been linked to ourselves, Brendan Rodgers is a very outside runner as well, making a return. Very, very outside, I will just say that as well. Luis Enrique is another name as well, man. He hasn't done club football for, I think it's about 5 years or so previously. What are we thinking? Who do we feel, realistically, who should Chelsea be going for? I know, I'll start with you, Tem. And I know you watch a lot more football from European leagues. Who do you think Chelsea should realistically be going for here? Who's the man who's going to handle this large, bloated squad? Or do we say, do you know what, this season, just keep with Bruno Salter till the end of the season as an interim and then hire someone fresh for the summer? And that way, this manager isn't going to be associated with the Chelsea team finishing in the mid-table mediocrity.
Well, it's kind of a conundrum. It depends how the club wants to play it out, because you never know. Some players may be persuaded to stay or change their minds due to a new manager coming in. Or do the club want to get rid of the players first and then bring a new manager in? If you get what I mean. Some players can sort of, play into form and change the manager's decision, which obviously some fans won't like if the likes of like Pulisic become, mainstay players again, or maybe Kovacic has a head turn because I think he wants to leave. Maybe other players who have been outcasted like Aubameyang suddenly pick up form for the last 10 games of the season, and he maybe signs a year extension or something. I don't know, but you don't know what's sort of the best thing to do. It just depends what the club decides, really. In terms of my decision, I would like to see either most likely Nagelsmann or Pochettino. I'm not quite sure about Enrique. I mean, his Barcelona tenure was really good, but then again, he did have the best team in the world. And when you see his Roma record, it's been really bad. I thought at the World Cup with Spain, they were really bad. But they one thing I will say, he does know how to play a possession-based system.
Yeah.
And they don't really have clinical players much like us. So would it be the same thing we've been seeing under Tuchel and, Potter as of now?
Yeah.
Which, again, really isn't his fault. So do we maybe sign a striker? But, again, I don't think that automatically now changes us into a top team, because I think we need more than just a striker to get goals out of this team. I think we do need to get a manager in who will put us into good repetitive patterns to give us the best chance of scoring, not create one chance every 15 minutes or, keep pressure on for 5 minutes and then concede a goal and lose all that pressure for the rest of the game. It's something like a Guardiola or Klopp team. We need to constantly just keep attacking the opponent very well. But yeah, like Dale said, we've got to pay Bayern compensation. So maybe give Anthony Barry a little small deal in between or something. I don't know.
The problem is, I think Anthony Barry's off to Munich.
Yeah,
so
that's what I mean.
I think it's going to go there.
The other way, he's got to have a compensation fee as well.
But one thing you'd argue as well, if we have to pay Bayern compensation, I would assume that means they put Nagelsmann on gardening leave in order to bring in Tuchel, so technically stand under employment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a tricky one unless it's been a case of similar to us, because I'm fairly certain Potter, when he was sacked, I don't think I think he was entitled to roughly about £50 million. Because that's the terms of his contract until he signs with a clause with another club, or you could take like a lump sum, and most managers take the lump sum to break the thing, and I'm fairly certain that Potter has done that.
I think what will happen, I think we'll probably get Nagelsmann, but it'll probably be at the end of the season, because that'll avoid having to pay Bayern money. Bayern aren't pushing Nagelsmann to take this job to get some money.
No, but Chelsea are. If you saw the reports, Chelsea want to get a manager in before Madrid. So
really, but can we not just get? I mean, obviously this Bruno guy is going to be there tomorrow, right? But can we get a professional interim, if you like, in someone who's basically
just hitting?
That grade of manager, just some bloke who can essentially babysit the team through to the end of the season.
Bruce.
Yeah, because look, but the way that I look at it, I don't see how the Real Madrid game is in 8 days' time. I don't see what Nagelsmann's going to do in 8 days. It's that someone like Hiddink couldn't do. It's going to be it'll take him time to change it around anyway. That way we avoid having to give Bayern compensation. I mean, I know it's 9 million on the grand scheme of things. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but still, we're still going to be paying Nagelsmann to the end of the season anyway on a contract. We're going to be throwing money at him, and that way it kind of makes sense as well. No, but if we try, but I see what Dale says there. But if we tie him down now, if we get that contract in place, like Ten Hag did with Man United, right? So you get the contract in place, but you say, right, Ragnick, you're still going to be there till the end of the season or whatever. But we are getting this guy, and this interim manager who comes in knows that he's only going to have. It could be anyone, John Terry, whatever, just whoever. It doesn't matter. Because we can't really get dragged into a relegation zone, and we've got nothing much to play for the rest of the season. So
I just think it would be absolutely fascinating if we managed to tie up something financially for Nagelsmann. Tuchel's at Bayern Munich. For some miracle, we beat Madrid and go through, and then we play Bayern Munich in the semi-finals. I think that would be box office. That would be one of the most watched games of the season, I reckon. But I want to go back to that, Tem. Dale, I will pick up on your point in just a second. But Tem, why Nagelsmann? Why do you think Nagelsmann is the right man for Chelsea?
Well, just really seen what he's done at Bayern Munich. He sort of plays a 3 at the back formation, which at the moment we're kind of suited to. To be honest, he is a bit of a German Potter. He's quite similar. He likes to shake things up quite often, but again, he has great understanding of the game. He when he took some time away from his jobs, he really liked to invent himself and really passionately study the game. And I don't think there's many managers who sort of take that extra mile in management to just keep working on their craft. And I think it's something an elite manager needs and has, in a sense. You see how much Pep talks about football, how much he breathes and stresses himself so much about football, even Jurgen Klopp. And I think that's kind of what we need at the moment, someone who understands everything about the game and to explain to the players from a tactical perspective of how to defend with space, how to defend with the ball and just keep the ball and move into dangerous positions and get some goals.
Yeah, and I think it's like what Dale says here, like Madrid and the PSG jobs, both rumored to be opening up with Ancelotti linked to the Brazil job. And Madrid not likely to win the La Liga this season. Is it Christophe Galtier, PSG manager? Whilst Nagelsmann's available on the market, if these jobs are opening up, the Madrid job and the PSG job, it's going to be very difficult to, fight off interest and take that managerial position. Charlie, I'll throw it across to you in terms of like managers that you feel might be beneficial. I know you want to play 4-4-2 tomorrow. You want Mike Bassett in. You want Sam Allardyce, Steve Bruce. You want to throw up some of the
but it's a short-term
big lump up top.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to be best? Do you think it's time with these rumored jobs that is going to be coming available in the next few weeks? Allegedly, we say. Do you think it's best to try and get the Nagelsmann in now, or do you think just leave it with Bruno Salter to the end of the season, announce Nagelsmann, and then have him start afresh in the new year, not have him linked to something this season at all?
I don't know why you wouldn't do that, because it makes perfect sense. It gives, I think Nagelsmann said he didn't want to bounce straight into another job anyway, because he wasn't expecting to get sacked in the first place. Yeah. So give him time, let him do what he wants for the next few months. He can watch Chelsea from and go to all the matches and everything and be in the stands. He's not a conflict of interest because he's not working anywhere else. So he can just sit there in the stands, watch what's what. He can decide who he wants and who he doesn't want. He can make quite a few decisions from up there. And whilst under contract, so we can sign him up tomorrow, but start him in May or whatever, right? And it's similar to what Man United do. You see, the thing is, what a lot of people will say to that is, well, why did they sack Potter in the first? Why don't they just leave it with Potter to the end of the season and get that? It's because Nagelmann's available now, but it's also because the fans are booing every match. It's just embarrassing. It could get worse, right? But this Bruno, it's such a free hit. If he loses every match to the end of the season, no one really cares, as long as they know that there's light at the end of the tunnel with this Nagelsmann character. So I think that's the key, isn't it? It's almost just keeping the fans on side sort of thing. I don't think it's crucial that Nagelsmann starts now. If he does, great. But I don't think it's crucial. I have
to agree. I think from an optics perspective as well, like in terms of if he was to start now, he would still be a part of this season. So fans will still have that. I know there's the caveat of the fact it was mostly done by Potter this season, but he'd still start in a season where Chelsea are going to end up in, 10th, 11th, potentially 12th, who knows. I think it would be better for him to start in the summer, like genuinely, and then that optics there is like we had Bruno. He was in there. He held the fort down for however many games that we got left in the season. It was 9 or something like that. Held that down and then started fresh. But yeah, so we're discussing Nagelsmann. Any outside runners? I mean, some of the names, De Zerbi, Thomas Frank. I think Tem, you made the point in terms of Thomas Frank. He's done well at Brentford. He's very, very close. He doesn't have to move house. Why not look within the Premier League?
Well, yeah, this is another thing. Well, it just depends where do the club want to go. I feel like they want a manager like Arteta, which has been rumoured to sort of grow on the job, but at the same time be here for the long-term project. Maybe they don't want a short-term approach manager who's just here to win a couple of trophies and be sacked eventually soon because of disagreements or whatnot. I think they're really trying to find the right man to stay here for maybe the next 5-6 years, because everything that's been planned and looked at the club, it looks like they're planning long term. I don't think they really want to be spending a lot of money now, especially you see we're probably going to miss out on Europe. So it makes sense that you try to reduce costs and keep the manager in for a long term, bring a winning culture that's going to be sustainable here for a very, very long time, maybe with a bit of consistency instead of what we've been used to for the last 20 years where it's not working after 5 months and we get a new manager in. But so far, that's literally the path we're going down.
Yeah.
And it really just depends, because I think if they go for Luis Enrique, they're showing us that they want to win now and, start getting some trophies in. Maybe if they go for someone like Nagelsmann or De Zerbi or maybe Thomas Frank, they're trying to look down the long-term route of building a long-term sort of structure,
And Dale makes a valid point here. I mean, Ancelotti linked to Brazil, but say Nagelsmann goes to Madrid, I feel like Ancelotti to Chelsea would be a good sell experience, knows the whole game, like Tem said, did well with Chelsea. I mean, I've got very good memories of Carlo Ancelotti. He's well loved by fans and people at the club, admittedly, this is, 13 years later down the line. Say, for example, some miracle, Bruno was to knock, Madrid out of the cup. Chances are he probably could get the Hevo before the end of the season. If he then became available, would you be happy with Ancelotti coming back to the club, Charlie?
Yeah, of course, but it's a bit short-term, short-sighted appointment. I feel I don't think he's going to be a 7-year appointment. I think he's just going to, he'll probably do very well for a few years. I can't see Ancelotti having this squad and finishing 11th. Let's put it that way. I think he'll easily get us into Europe and probably the Champions League, and maybe even more than that. Who knows? But Ancelotti, I mean, he's got to be old now. I mean, he seems to have been around for so long. I mean, even when he came to Chelsea, he'd been at Milan for about 20 years before that, hadn't he?
He's got to be in his mid-60s. He's definitely like a...
I think he's in his 70s.
He's like Roy Hutchinson. Oh, no, he's not late 60s. He's 63.
Is he? Oh, he looks a lot.
Yes. He's 63 years old.
Shows what smoking does, doesn't it? He's
smoking all them cigars.
Cigars, yeah.
Gee, 63 years old.
So he's still a bit of oil.
I thought he was late 60s. I'm not gonna lie. That means when he was at Chelsea, he started out at Chelsea when he was 49.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I suppose he was a player, wasn't he, in the 80s? So it's not that unlikely. But he just seems so old. But yeah, look, if he's 63, if we get him till he's 70, I suppose it's all right, isn't it? But
one thing I will say for Ancelotti, I mean, I know Nagelsmann is available, but one thing I will say for Ancelotti, if the club are planning long term, they're going to want somebody like a Nagelsmann, or they're going to want somebody like a De Zerbi, or they're going to want somebody like Thomas Frank. Carlo Ancelotti does have experience dealing with big egos. And he's managed AC Milan, he's managed Real Madrid twice. He's got experience dealing with his big egos and generating players and performances out of these big egos, even though they're not able to play every minute of every game. I think for me, it's a tricky one. I think I'm torn between Nagelsmann. My heart is telling me to go with Ancelotti, but my head is telling me to go with Nagelsmann. Because, Ancelotti, better the devil, Nagelsmann, to me, it's like what Tem says. He is a bit of another. He's a German Potter, essentially. It's a kind of there's a risk that you take. Is it risk and reward? It's a very, very tricky one to negotiate. And no doubt, whoever we appoint, we'll give it 3 months. We'll be having discussions about why things are going wrong. Either way, but chaps, let's look forward to.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah, go on.
On the point about the long-term project, I think because Nagelsmann hasn't won so much in just the game as well, it's kind of like a learning curve for everyone to build that winning culture. And also, can I add, in terms of egos, I don't really see that in the Chelsea squad. I don't think there's too many winners in that in our club. Actually, I think most of those players have just won the Champions League and Super Cup. Yeah. So,
I mean, I'd argue that there are fairly big egos in this team. And there's nobody akin to like Cristiano Ronaldo level. Do you know what I mean? But there's still egos in terms of managing the ego of players like Aubameyang, experienced players like that, mount to a lesser degree in terms of him getting what he wants. Do you know what I mean? That's a lesser Kovacic. We've all picked that up in the last few weeks when we've watched him and the camera's been on him. You can see his eyes are out there. Like his game against Villa is probably one of his worst games we've seen him in the Chelsea shirt. I think mentally he's checked out and he's already, looking elsewhere at the moment. That's another ego to manage. Does the experienced manager come in and say, all right, well, we're just not going to use you? If you've got no interest in playing for the club, there you are. Go play with the reserves for the next 6 weeks, whatever. I don't care. I'll just play the players that actually want to play. Like, would a Nagelsmann do that, or would an experienced manager like Ancelotti or Steve Bruce?
This is kind of the point of contention. Like, who do you get rid of in the summer? Like, do you bring in a manager now and let those players, like you said, with an ego back into the team, and then be stuck with them in the summer and have to deal with? We've invested a lot of money into young players at the moment. You look at likes of Chukwuemeka, Andrey Santos, who hasn't even come in yet. Madueke, although I imagine he wouldn't mind probably holding bench. But you've got players like Felix now as well, who potentially will become a permanent. Mount himself, Sterling, and Nkunku coming in. You've got a lot of players that who want to start. So again, like, do you let a manager come in now, or do you let the club decide who's gone before he even comes in?
Yeah, I think with all those younger players as well, Charlie. I mean, do you think, maybe a Nagelsmann might be better?
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading a little bit about Nagelsmann, and hasn't he? When Timo Werner was at Leipzig before he came to us, that was when he was quite good, wasn't it? And that was around the same time when this guy was there. I mean, if he can get 30 goals out of Werner in a season or whatever, then he must be doing something right. And
to be fair, I think this is pre-VAR, so I think he was offside for at least half of them. It just wasn't picked up. Let's be honest.
Probably the linesmen aren't so good out there, but it's that's the only thing I would say. Yeah, he probably is pretty good with youth, but then is he good with experienced players? I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't know enough about these managers. I think hardly any of us do. I barely heard of this guy Nagelsmann. I knew they had this young manager, but I couldn't name his name before a couple of weeks ago. But that's just because I don't really watch a lot of European football. So I don't really know enough about them to make a qualified opinion, to be honest. I know the Premier League ones, but I mean the Premier League ones, I can't. There's no one available really who's any good. I wouldn't.
Brendan Rodgers.
No, it's
send for the man.
No, you don't want to. I mean, coming out, he's been sacked because
he is proper Chelsea.
He is proper Chelsea. He is proper Chelsea, but at the same time, he's just imagine Potter's left, and we're bringing in a guy who's just been sacked from Leicester as second bottom. I mean, it can't be. I mean, what that bloated squad going to think of that? I mean, that's just a new.
Yeah.
That's the definition of frying pan into the fire, isn't it? And then the next De Zerbi, yeah. I mean, I don't think he's good. I don't think he'd take the job. If I'm being honest. He probably talked to Potter, and he's doing everything's going right for him at Brighton. Why would he take the job? He's only just got there. I mean,
I think the only reason somebody like that in that position would take the job is just money. I think that's the only thing, and I think he'd be foolish. I think a lot of managers at the moment would be very, very foolish to take on this Chelsea job at this point in time, unless it's pre-agreed in the summer, like what Charlie said. Sorry, Tom.
I tend to disagree. I think for any manager, just the name having the Chelsea job means a lot. To be honest, on your CV, most managers tend to come out with a trophy at least. So it's something for them to.
I'd say at this time, necessarily. I think if I'd agree, any manager if they're appointed in the pre-season period, but at this time, I think it would taint your name a little bit.
I don't think
unless Nagelsmann comes in at this point, absolutely blitzes us, gets the seventh, wins the Champions League with us. That would be. It's not going to taint his name there. But even if he finished with us 8th, didn't win the Champions League, which is it's not likely, and then next season qualifies for top 4, that kind of removes it. But it's also that element of risk, isn't it? Having somebody come in and
I don't know, Tom. I disagree there. I think it's more of a free hit. If it's agreed with the club in a sense of you've got a free hit at this, sort of just do what you can to see out the season and start planning for next season, then it possibly could be the best thing to happen so far. But of course, like you said, if it all does go to crap like it has under Potter, then you already start having doubts about next season.
Yeah. Well, it's never, ever, ever dull being a Chelsea fan, is it? Let's look ahead. Let's look forward to tomorrow. We've got Bruno Salter at the helm, former Brighton left back, former assistant under Graham Potter, and we welcome Liverpool to Stamford Bridge. Last few games against Liverpool, I think they've been draws, haven't they? In terms of how things have got on. Last one I think was a nil. Draws and losses, 0-0. How do we feel? I mean, Potter's gone. So how are you feeling going into tomorrow? Do you think it's going to be just, same shit, different week?
It could be anything. I think it could be anything, literally. It really could. Look at when
new manager bounce.
Yeah. Or it could be this guy's the same. This guy was the guy giving Potter advice, So this guy's exactly the same. He's actually worse. He's underneath Potter. So
are you saying he snaked him to get the job?
No, not necessarily that, but I think that you've got to remember it's not these days. It's not one bloke who makes all the decisions with these managers. They have advice from various coaches and things like that. So, and he's one of them, right? So he might have been the one who told Potter to play Loftus-Cheek at right wing back, right, and persist with it. So no, well, exactly. We don't know. We don't know these things, do we? So what I'm trying to say is, I don't think it's. I think if it was a completely random interim manager from outside, I'd be a bit more hopeful. But I don't think this guy's got no qualification, by the way, either. But it could go either way. He could Aston Villa, when they sacked Steven Gerrard, they had an interim manager for one game and won 4-0 or something, didn't they? Or they I can't remember what happened. As soon as Gerrard got sacked, they played somebody at home this season.
Oh yeah, and they pumped them.
And they pumped them.
They scored like 4 goals in the first half an hour or something like that.
Yeah. So that could happen. We're playing Liverpool at what is perceived as a good time, because obviously they're on a terrible run. But they do turn up for these matches. They can. Liverpool are just as flaky as us this season. So this could be 4-0 Chelsea. It could be 4-0 Liverpool. It could be a 0-0 draw. I mean, I know that sounds like a cliche, but it could be anything. This really could be anything. I couldn't tell you what the result's going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how he lines up. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, is he going to just stick with the Potter, stick with the same players, or is he going to mix up a bit, or what formations is he going to play? That'll all be quite fascinating,
Yeah, well, we got nothing really to kind of like base it on, the fact that he's not managed, in the Premier League before, so we don't really know what he likes.
Managed anyone before?
Wants to play. Yeah, exactly. So we don't really know how things are going to go down. It's a tricky one. I mean, how are you feeling in terms of getting it tomorrow? Do you feel like it's going to be same shit, different week, or do you think, new manager, new bounce? Maybe we'll get a score draw. We might even score twice. Who knows? But we will concede twice. And
whenever you see an interim manager come in, it's always, shut up shop at the back, sort of carry on the previous manager's ideas with the tiny little tweaks. So I think we'll be playing for a draw tomorrow, if anything. I don't see us, suddenly coming out like, all guns blazing and playing some free-flowing football. I think it'll be much of try keep everything defensively solid and, try contain Liverpool and, play out for the result, really, rather than, going for a 3-0 win or something. So I think we'll see much of the same of what we've seen under Potter, to be honest. And it may be why the new ownership as well want a permanent manager in before the Madrid game, because, they want something, for the fans and for themselves to write home about.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very interesting to see how things are going to play out tomorrow. I won't be able to watch the game, unfortunately, so you two are going to have to take notes because I'm playing football and I'm in London tomorrow. I'm not having an interview for the Chelsea job. Promise I'm not. But if I was, I would do spectacularly, and I won't take any criticisms whatsoever, my way or the highway, and I'd offer Mount a new contract. Well, boys, it's been a pleasure. Unless there's any other business that you can think of, there's not really much we can do. It's hard to kind of gauge where we're going to go without having a manager that's previously managed in the Premier League before. What to expect. It'd just be nice to see a performance. It'd be nice to see a couple of goals. I think even if we lost 3-2, I'd be pleased that we scored twice. Do you know what I mean? This is how desperate times are as to be a Chelsea fan. But yeah, I appreciate you both for joining me this week. We'll be back next week on Monday at 9:30, and we'll review Chelsea versus Liverpool and Chelsea versus
Wolves this weekend.
Wolves away. That'll be interesting. Be interesting. Well, boys, I appreciate your time, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Take care.
Take care.